That worked pretty well. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. We're continuing in the long tradition of senior speeches at Eastwood Christian School. Pretty much every graduation has the valedictorian, salutatorian, somebody else, school president, come up and give a speech. But luckily for you students, you go to Eastwood. And at Eastwood, everyone gives a speech. Think back to previous students you may have known. Think about some students that you thought, there's no way that guy can actually talk for 5 consecutive minutes without falling down. They did it. All you kids out there in the lower grades, guess what you're gonna do when you're a senior? You're gonna give a speech. And, as you can tell from the speeches you've already heard, somehow it's gonna be pretty good. What we do at Eastwood is try to teach you slowly, bring you up bit by bit. We start with simple things, we start putting them together. We move on, though, to the entire point of education. On the second guess. And it's even more fun to show your friends who took 5 tries. But the point of knowledge, the point of learning vocabulary, learning science, learning history, learning math, is not to know history, science, and math. Everything you know, even if it's how to beat a level at Fortnite, can be shared, yeah, I'm talking about you nerds, can be shared with someone else. We are a community, we are a commune of believers and images of God, and we share our knowledge with other people. That's the entire point of it. The class where they practice their speech is called rhetoric, which sounds like a rhetorical question. The rhetorical question, which by now we just mean that we don't want an answer, but originally the idea of rhetorical question was one that you didn't answer to show your intelligence. It was a question you asked to help other people think. It's a question you asked to help yourself think. It's a question you used not just to show what you knew, but to actually teach something. And so, what these seniors are about to do, whether they're excited about it or not, is they're going to teach you. They're going to tell you something. They have had an experience that they have painstakingly ground into a 10-minute speech. And in that speech, they're going to tell you about what they've learned. They're going to tell you some things that you should do. You'll probably do what they did and be like, yeah, I should do that. And then you'll forget all about it when the moment comes. But that's okay. Part of learning is learning what you should have done. Every chance we have to share what we know, as Christians, we are called to share this. The gospel is that Christ died for us, but it's also that he created all of this. Everything we know about our experience on earth, everything we know about our time here, is a B plot in the great story of the gospel. And so, we are excited now to bring up some of our seniors this year, 3 more, as they are going to teach you something, whether you like it or not. Cameron, if you'd come up first.
Welcome, everybody, to the second day of senior speeches. All right, let's talk about rabbits. I got my first rabbit, Mabel, in April 2021. My mom had suggested that I get a pet, and after researching quite a bit, rabbits appealed to me. Researching something can often make you realize just how little you actually know about it, which was the case for me when it came to researching rabbit care. Generally, we think of rabbits as living in small cages inside or maybe in hutches outside. Small cages and hutches do not provide much room for rabbits to move around, though. For about a month after we got Mabel, she lived in a 4-foot by 4-foot pen in my room and would get a chance to wander around my room for a few hours each day. After that first month, she was allowed loose in my bedroom 24/7. In the corner of my bedroom, there was a litter box for her. Doing chores for Mabel did not bother me much. Taking responsibility for another life brought new meaning to my own. Once we got Mabel, I wasn't aware of how important it is for rabbits to live together. When we realized rabbits' need for social interaction with another of their species, we got our second rabbit, Nix. The cottontails of North America are solitary, but domesticated rabbits are descended from European breeds, which live in groups of 2 to 10. Like humans, domesticated rabbits are social animals, so they need social interaction. Imagine if you never interacted with other humans. Sad time. Rabbits similarly need social interaction with other rabbits even when it doesn't seem like they want it. When my rabbits first met, Mabel was terrified of Nix. Nix would approach Mabel and Mabel would circle her and thump. Thumping is a signal of distress. When I set Mabel down after picking her up, she almost always thumps. Both of my rabbits have thumped in response to hearing loud sounds from another room. Hearing a rabbit thump when you have never heard it before can be kind of scary, since rabbits are very quiet animals. They don't really make vocal sounds like other pets do. I somewhat relate to that because I used to be pretty quiet. I am my rabbit Mabel, metaphorically speaking. Both of us were kind of scared of our surroundings and of new people. Before I went to Eastwood, I avoided people generally, and this habit continued into my first year here. When I was homeschooled, I interacted with people my age 1 to 3 times a week, and I only had classes once a week. During these classes, I did talk and interact with people, but I preemptively disliked some of them, thinking they disliked me. You'll never be rejected if you reject the other person first. It could then have been a self-fulfilling prophecy, since people generally dislike you if you dislike them. In the cases of both Mabel and myself, other people continued to be gracious, regardless of their actual opinion of us and regardless of our behavior. Nix always treated Mabel kindly and did not retaliate when Mabel freaked out on him. My first year at Eastwood, 10th grade, there were people everywhere and they all wanted to interact. I usually went off by myself at break and lunch. This was not because I disliked anyone, it's just that meeting new people can be stressful. It can be uncomfortable to be around people who don't know you, but who all know each other. Mabel also seemed to find meeting new people stressful. When rabbits first meet, you have to put them through a bonding process. Stress bonding is when you put rabbits in stressful situations like car rides in the hopes that they will be so distracted by the stress that they will not want to attack each other. Ideally, during stress bonding, the rabbits will look to each other for comfort, though that doesn't always happen. When I put my rabbits in a cat carrier and took them for 20-minute car rides, they just sat together with blank stares. The first time I really tried to bond them, I placed them in a 50-pound cardboard box. Mabel ran around like crazy, attacking Nix without drawing blood, though. Mabel eventually jumped out of the box. For obvious reasons, we thought that maybe the rabbits wouldn't be able to bond. After that, anytime we had a bonding session, we prefaced it with a 15 to 20-minute car ride, and they never fought like that again. Just like we thought about giving up on bonding rabbits, there are times in school when you may feel like giving up, not doing homework, not studying for a test, or even not going to school. In the second semester of 10th grade, I went to the hospital, and I never fully returned to all my classes until 11th grade. I thought that I might not be able to graduate since I was missing so much school. And when I did go to a class or two, I hated it. I wanted to drop out of school and get a GED. But during that time, Mr. Gibbons and the teachers were very kind and understanding, and over the summer, I read almost all of the literature books from the semester I'd missed, and when 11th grade started, I returned to school full-time. Essentially, I felt like giving up school, and I sort of did, but I never completely dropped out, and everything worked out fine. Likewise, my rabbits had unpleasant experiences during the bonding process, and we thought they might not be able to bond, but we persisted, and they ultimately did. They became fully bonded after we put them through what is called marathon bonding, in which the rabbits were kept in a very small space until they had been calm for a while, and then you slowly increase the space. I started with putting them in a 2-foot by 2-foot pen and gradually increased it to 4-foot by 4-foot. Then they spent a week in the 4-foot by 4-foot pen. The whole process took maybe 8 or 9 days. While they are living together for a week in the 4x4 pen, the rabbits learn to coexist peacefully. There are situations in which the school forces us to take part in marathon bonding, traveling by bus to sports games and class trips like those to New Orleans and Europe, for example. These bonding experiences can bring out the craziness in all of us. Sometimes people act like rabbits. Usually in a rabbit pair, there is one rabbit that is more dominant and another that is more submissive. Performing an act associated with dominance is not a guarantee that the performer is the dominant rabbit, however. Some examples of acts of dominance are circling, humping, and chasing. Grooming another rabbit is a sign of submission. In some instances, both rabbits will try to get the other rabbit to groom them while simultaneously refusing to actually do the grooming. This, of course, results in a standoff. This dominant-submissive concept can apply to people in real-life social groups. Sometimes people try to assert dominance when they're not actually dominant, they just aspire to be. These assertions of dominance can be somewhat ridiculous and can include degrading and insulting someone else. The power dynamics between rabbits are generally established during bonding. An indication that the bonding is succeeding is if the bunnies are lying side by side or grooming each other. If the rabbits are humping, fighting, or chasing each other, you know something has gone wrong. In the case of the former, you know that something has gone very wrong. If the rabbits bond successfully, they're moved to a large room where they can free roam. Now my rabbits get along well. Nix grooms Mabel sometimes, which is a sign of approval. Mabel will rest with her chin on the ground in front of Nix to ask Nix to groom her. Sometimes Nix ignores Mabel's request, but she usually will groom Mabel's forehead. Thank you everybody for listening. Yeah, it's almost over already. I would say something like, thanks for putting up with me these past few years, but I basically just did. To the rest of the senior class, I will genuinely miss you guys next year. I want to thank Mr. Miller in particular for moving the podium when it's blocking my view of the slideshow. I have not asked you to move the podium once. Both with bonding rabbits and education, the experience can be unpleasant at times. Interacting with others can be scary, and you may feel like giving up, but you get through it, and the end result is rewarding.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending the second day of the Class of 2022 Senior Speeches. At Eastwood, we study many different battles throughout many different points in history. We learn the history of Kenai, Waterloo, Gettysburg, and many more. But today I want to talk about perhaps the greatest battle in history, a conflict between the forces of good and the forces of evil. You all no doubt know what I'm speaking of, the 2013 Iron Bowl, otherwise known as the Kick Six. This battle between the number 4 Auburn Tigers and the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide would go down in history as one of the most famous football games to ever be played. We can all learn from the heroic and selfless acts of the Auburn football team because we all must face challenges, but only some will choose to stay determined and motivated during those challenges. On paper, Alabama was unbeatable. They had over 32 players go in the draft, some of which added multiple Pro Bowl appearances. The roster basically sounded like a Pro Bowl roster, with C.J. Mosley, Amari Cooper, HaHa Clinton Dix, A.J. McCarron, Alvin Kamara, Eddie Lacy, Derrick Henry, and Landon Collins. This team was loaded. Amari Cooper was a wide receiver for the Tide and was a huge factor in the game. He had been leading the Tide through the season and seemed unguardable. Also, quarterback A.J. McCarron had been playing amazing and seemed to be a future NFL star. As one can tell, the Tide had much talent. They also had and still have the best coach of all time, Nick Saban. He has an impressive resume with 6 national titles that he has brought to the university. Saban had also led the team to the Iron Bowl without obtaining a single loss. He had been unbeatable, taking down opponents such as Texas A&M and LSU. Often situations can seem impossible, such as thesis class. This is a huge thing that everyone talks about, and it sounds like one of the worst things to do here at Eastwood. With these difficult situations, it can often seem like people are much better than you. They are able to perform research much easier and are often able to write much easier. I often can relate to Auburn in this situation. When it comes to school and education, some people may be more gifted than us. The ability to stay determined and motivated, though, allows us to often compete with them. Alabama looked unbeatable at the beginning of the Iron Bowl. Though the game began with an Auburn touchdown, Alabama would score 21 unanswered points. As the game continued, Auburn could not get much going. The score was still 21-7. The team's perseverance was being tested and it seemed like nothing could go their way. In the same way, Eastwood has tested our perseverance and abilities. This is a good example for the way we should respond when we get knocked down in school. We need to stay strong and committed to our work rather than giving up. The seemingly hopeless Tigers continued to fight and were able to score a touchdown right before halftime. Even when Auburn got punched in the mouth, they were able to still keep fighting and refuse to give up. Later, they were able to tie the game right after halftime. This relates to when you are doing well in anatomy, chemistry, or biology. The team was feeling good, as we do when we are often performing well in school. Soon enough, though, the seemingly invincible Crimson Tide made a phenomenal play. Quarterback A.J. McCarron connected with future NFL star wide receiver Amari Cooper. This would go down in the books as a 99-yard touchdown and one of the best plays of that season, and there was nothing Auburn could do to stop it. Doing your best, trying your hardest, doesn't mean you always get the result you want. such as in school when you work very hard and study for a test and get a decent amount lower than you were expecting. Some circumstances are greater than your best efforts, but the Tigers would soon find out that they possessed something the Tide did not. While the Tide seemed to have all the momentum, the Tigers did not give up and would not take no for an answer. As the Auburn fans watched, they were anxious and worried, but never lost hope. When everyone was watching in anticipation, Nick Marshall connected with future NFL wide receiver Sammy Coates for a touchdown that would tie the game. After Auburn kicked the extra point, Alabama took the ball back and went down the field. Ultimately, after a very long review to see where and when running back T.J. Yeldon stepped out of bounds for the Tide, it was ruled that there was 1 second left on the clock. Nick Saban decided to send his freshman kicker on to kick a field goal. Chris Davis Jr. was a mostly unknown quarterback on the Auburn Tigers who soon would be known by the whole country. Davis was sent back to the end zone just in case the kick came up short. The kick was up and was short. Davis caught it, ran it out, got multiple blocks, and cut to the left. He turned the corner, tiptoed along the sideline as multiple Alabama players missed him. After this, all he saw was an open field and an end zone, and ultimately he won the game for the Tigers. The moment Chris Davis looked at all those future NFL linemen for Alabama and realized they could never catch up is a moment all those students who worked hard and stayed determined know all too well, when they look back at some of their fellow students who didn't put in the effort and realize God has rewarded them for all their hard work and determination. Sometimes a game just comes down to an act of God, though. No amount of preparation and determination prepares us for these moments in sports or in our lives. They remind us that God is truly in charge, and not even the dark forces of Nick Saban could stand against him. While it is essential for us to stay motivated and determined in our work, ultimately it is up to God and His will. As Gary Danielson said, there was no way Alabama was going to catch him because they had all fat guys on the field, no athletes. In a similar way, the fat guys of our education career are these classes that look very big and hard to overcome at first, such as thesis, anatomy, chemistry, and more. Then with some determination and the help of God's will, these seemingly unbeatable things become beatable. Most of you know the 2013 Iron Bowl ended with the storming of the field in celebration. Very closely related, we will celebrate the success of our hard work and determination to follow God's will. That Iron Bowl moment reminds me of how God has helped us to pass all these oppositions in senior year. We have reached the end, possibly by a miracle, and it was through God's help. There are some people who I would like to thank as they have helped me in growing my determination and motivation to follow God's will. First, thank you to all the teachers and faculty at Eastwood. You pushed us and showed us what it really means to work hard, and I'm forever grateful for that. Second, thank you to my class. You all have been awesome, and thanks for encouraging me along the way and showing me how to have fun while doing it. To Coach Roberts, thank you for showing us what it really means to play hard and teaching us stuff that goes way further than just basketball. To Nathan and my youth group, thank you for pouring into me and steering me in the right direction to be a leader for the Lord. To Melody, thank you for being a great older sister. I know there's a pretty big age gap between us, but you have always been kind and loving to me. I love you. To Brianna, thank you for always being there for me and teaching me all about basketball. You always help me with my homework, and thank you for being one of my best friends. Love you. To Chloe, thank you for sticking with me no matter what, even when stuff gets frustrating. Thank you for showing me how to study, especially science, and having fun while doing it. You bring light to my life, and I will always be grateful for you. Love you. To Mom, thank you for always being there. You have shown me what a godly woman looks like, and even when I would mess up, I knew you would still be there for me. Thank you for always guiding me through situations, even the tough ones. I am forever grateful to you and will always be proud to be called your son. I love you. To Dad, thank you for showing me what it means to be a godly man. You are hardworking, determined, funny, and wise. I'm so grateful for the knowledge you have given me on fishing, cars, and tons of other stuff. I hope one day to grow up to be half the man you are. I love you. In our education careers, there are always going to be those who maybe do not have to work as hard as us or catch on to something much faster than us. While this may be true, as seen with Auburn, those who are underestimated, maybe ranked a little lower, if determined and motivated, can come out on top. The refusal to quit in the end can overcome opponents even if they are smarter. And sometimes, as seen with the 2013 Iron Bowl, God directly intervenes and rewards the righteous and determined. Thank you.
When I look back on my time at Eastwood, I'm reminded of a book I read many years ago called Harris and Me. In the book, the main character, an unnamed 11-year-old boy, goes to spend the summer with some relatives on their farm. When he arrives, he meets Harris, his 9-year-old, hyperactive, mischievous cousin. The two quickly begin getting into trouble, sneaking around the farm at the crack of dawn, smoking hand-rolled cigarettes, and trying to cause any mischief they can. Some of their escapades include pretending to be soldiers in World War II, using a pigsty as their battlefield, which results in Harris getting trampled by an angry pig, trying to fight an aggressive rooster and losing the fight, urinating on an electric fence, resulting in Harris getting an electric shock, playing cowboy with a loaded shotgun and firing it into the air, and getting too close to a bull, resulting in Harris getting kicked in the chest and nearly dying. Throughout the book, there are two morals to the story. The first is, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The second is that the only way to learn is to make a mistake. Each time that Harris and his cousin come up with an idea, it ends badly for one or both of them. However, despite their injuries, both enjoy their time together, and by the end of the summer, the main character leaves the farm feeling a mix of happiness and sadness. He is thankful for his time with Harris and sad to leave the farm behind. In my time at Eastwood, I had several ideas that I thought were great or that I couldn't imagine ending up badly. I would carry out my ideas, realize they were stupid, and regret them immediately. But on the other hand, each time I did something dumb and got in trouble, I matured a little bit more. Without those mistakes and the lessons learned from them, I would not be the person I am today. When I thought about what to compare this story to for my speech, I immediately thought of two semi-recent personal experiences. Two prominent mistakes I once made came to mind, wherein I played very stupid games and won very stupid prizes. The first happened during the lockdown in 2020, when classes were online. Being at home for most of the day took away my motivation to do schoolwork, which left me procrastinating until late at night, when I would finally decide it was time to get my work done. This left me tired the next day, which only took away more motivation to do schoolwork, which created a disastrous cycle. All my classes suffered significant decreases in grade averages, but the one average that was affected most by this cycle was geometry. I was already bad at math, so on top of procrastinating, I didn't even know what to do when I finally got around to trying to do it, which meant that now I was doing virtually no geometry homework. Eventually, I did a relatively easy geometry project, albeit 2 weeks late, for which I received no credit, but it would have greatly helped my average in the class had I done it on time. By the end of the school year, I had a failing grade in the class. Upon finding this out, I was devastated. I got off easy though. I only had to do a quick review of the sections I had struggled on, take a test, and that was that. It only took about a month. It was embarrassing, but I moved on. Lesson learned, right? Wrong. A year later, I did the same thing, but this time the stakes were much higher, and so were the consequences. This second story took place about a year ago, right at the end of my junior year of high school. Much like the last time, I had managed to put so little effort into school that I once again ended the year with a failed class. MLA to be exact, one of the least demanding classes that Eastwood offers, which I failed due to extreme procrastination and lack of efficient time management. I was given a second chance though. Ms. Geiger graciously allowed me to receive a passing grade if I completed a packet of unfinished notes and a few other tasks. It was easy enough, I thought. It should only take a few hours. A few hours later, and I still hadn't started them. Late that night, I finally started working, but it was so late that I didn't bother finishing them. When I woke up the next morning, I frantically began working again. And then I decided it was finally time to head to the school, find out if I would be given another chance. I was not. I was instead sent to Dr. Bias's office, where I was solidly chewed out, rebuked, and berated. When I got home, embarrassed, depressed, and enraged, I walked into my house, unsure if I would be kicked out of it or receive some other punishment. However, over the next few days, things were set into order. Mr. Givens let me take an online course that would compensate for MLA credit. I got started immediately, forcing myself to finally sit down and do the work, which made me feel a little bit better. Over the summer, I worked on the course day by day, getting closer to completion, and all the while, my motivation was kept up by two special people. Their names are Dr. Bias and Scott Pritchett. For those of you that know both, Mr. Pritchett's name carries far more notoriety than Dr. Bias's, and for good reason. For about 2 weeks following the incident, I was forced to work for Mr. Pritchett every morning from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The work consisted of all sorts of menial tasks, such as sweeping, moving things, and once, as a result of angering him, I was forced to clean the company bathrooms. For those 2 weeks, every mistake I made earned vituperative, vitriolic rebukes, rife with creative metaphors and a myriad of pejorative nicknames. Finally, I got a break and was sent to work every day at Eastwood with Dr. Bias. The work at Eastwood was much more enjoyable. I helped to clean the school and move teachers in and out of their new and old rooms, and even learn how to work with sheetrock mud. I was rewarded every day for my work with as many Diet Mountain Dews as my heart desired. Additionally, my efforts were met with positive feedback and encouragement for a change, and I much preferred working at Eastwood. All the while, I kept on working on the MLA summer course, bit by bit, every day, and the day that I would be finished drew steadily nearer. When that day came, I was ecstatic. I could almost feel a physical weight fall from my shoulders. I was finally able to enjoy the rest of my summer stress-free. It felt good to be done, but my GPA was greatly impacted by these 2 mistakes, and as a result, my college scholarship opportunities suffered greatly as well. As I spent the last of my summer kicking back and having a good time, I became introspective and reflective about the past 2 months. I came to the realization that even though I had just endured quite a roller coaster of trial and tribulation, it took a mistake or 2 mistakes of this magnitude for me to significantly grow in maturity and responsibility. And now I have some people to thank. To my teachers, thank you for making a good education the #1 priority. Ms. Minshew, Ms. DeHuff, and Ms. Taylor, thank you for trying to teach me math, though I fear little progress was made there. To Dr. Bias and Mr. Pritchett, even though I hated getting chewed out by both of you, thank you for doing it. It helped me wake up to how irresponsible I was being. Thank you both for motivating me to get my summer work done by threatening me with hard manual labor. To my various coaches and teammates, thank you for making soccer, basketball, cross country, trap, and the play fun and fulfilling. I'm thankful for all the good memories that we made together in dirty locker rooms in the middle of nowhere before basketball games, on the bus heading to cross country meets, and messing around at play practice. To my family, Mom, thank you for all the amazing food you so graciously prepared, and for all the times you went out of your way to make me happy. Dad, thank you for all the important life lessons you taught me over the years. How to load a gun, how to shoot it, how to fish, how to use nearly every tool in the workshop, how to drive, and how to manage money. John and Matt, thank you for all the fun times we had wrestling, building forts in the woods, and all the airsoft and Nerf gun battles. Anna Christina, thank you for always coming to talk to me whenever I got home from school to see how I was doing and for being the funniest little sister anyone could ask for. To my grandparents, Nana, it's hard to say whether you or Mom had the better cooking. I always was and always will be excited to come over to your house just to hang out and talk. Vovo, thank you for all the days spent together fishing, exploring the woods, and making all kinds of things in your workshop. To my Brazilian family, thank you for every memory we've made together each time we've gotten the chance to come down to Brazil and see all of you. To all my classmates, what would I do without y'all? Ever since kindergarten, I woke up every morning unable to contain my excitement to come to school, see y'all, make jokes, and goof around. School was one of the only places where I could let my imagination and personality run wild, and I had the privilege of doing it with all of you. For the 13 years that I've gotten to attend Eastwood School, y'all have made every day interesting and memorable, though some of those memories are a bit more traumatizing than others. Despite all those traumatic events of which I speak, I've loved all 13 years at Eastwood, and I wouldn't trade them for any other school in the world. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Miller reminded us at the start that this is all about a process of reminding and learning. Education is all about being reminded of things that you may already know that you forgot and learning new things. And so I took a couple of notes. I was reminded of the purpose of education. Right? What's the point of knowing all this stuff if you can't express it in a community, especially, our faith? I was reminded that public speaking is one of the, or if not the greatest fear on the face of the earth, in survey after survey after survey. And so you guys have conquered a great fear. So you're to be commended for that. I'm reminded that in Alabama, everything boils down to Alabama and Auburn. So I'm reminded that of once again. I even heard the word heresy, I think, in the back of the room back there at some point from an Alabama fan. So of some torn clothes and some things like that. So I learned some things. I learned that to look at rabbits differently. Thumping and quietness actually means something, especially with a loud person like me. So it's very important to think about those things. I learned to look at mistakes differently, right? Sometimes we have to fail. Sometimes, and it's the hardest thing we have to do as teachers and parents. And James, I'm a product of failure. Scott Pritchett is a product of failure. We're all failed. And so it's our responsibility to do what other people help us do through and walk through failure together. And everybody in this room, you're going to fail if you haven't already. And that's the great part of the gospel, is that we can live on through mistakes and failures. Let's see. I'm also reminded that Mr. Pritchett wants to know what vituperative means. So can you explain that to him? And then he'll remind me what that means as well. So thanks, James. So anyways, just a couple of my notes. I know you parents are so proud. Thank you for everyone coming out and supporting them. This is a big deal in their life, in the life of Eastwood here. A lot of work goes into being able to stand and speak of good things. And so thank you, teachers. We look forward to hearing from who's up tomorrow. We've got Andrew. Okay, we go. Is he? All right, 3 more tomorrow. And we're excited. So anyways, I hope you guys are listening out there and learning. Take some notes. There's always something to be learned, and you guys will be up here before you know it. So I'm going to close this in prayer, and then we're going to dismiss, and we're going to go to a baseball game in Birmingham, and we're going to win. So, all right. Father, we do thank you for the process of being reminded and also learning new things, that we have been given good minds, and we have in our school here parents, faculty, friends, staff, coaches, who are all dedicated to the renewing of the mind every day and dealing with reality, Lord, the reality that you are a great creator and that you created us. And that really is the separating question between all of life. And we believe we were created, and therefore it affects everything that we do. And we're all on this journey, Lord, and we make mistakes. We learn from those. We make good decisions. We make bad decisions, and it's all a result of our total education. And we're just so thankful we get to participate here in that together. Father, just bless these seniors. Help them as they continue to grow in wisdom and stature, and help them finish strong, and help the ones that are watching them out here in the seats today learn from their experiences and be motivated to be up here one day. And Lord, I do pray that you'd bless our travels as we head out as a team headed to Birmingham, and bless the other students that are out traveling today. And thank you again for our parents and family to support us. And Lord, just help us have a great, strong finish to the year, Lord. And we